Movement 1. The man before. The brick of cocaine sits on the evidence table, and you stand there for 11 seconds longer than you need to. Not because you want it, not yet. Because you recognize something in it. The specific weight of something that could fix everything and destroy everything simultaneously. You've seen that weight before. You carry it in your shoulder every morning you wake up. The one that needed surgery 2 years ago and still hasn't gotten it because your insurance has a $6,000 deductible and your bank account has $340. You're a DEA agent. 10 years. You took the oath in a room that smelled like carpet cleaner and ambition, and you meant every word. You kicked down doors in 3 countries. You watched 2 partners take bullets. You testified in 47 federal cases and never once shaded the truth, because the truth was enough, and you were one of the good guys. The good guys earn $67,000 a year before taxes. The men you arrest earn that in a week. You've done the math. You've been doing it for years. Lying in your empty apartment, your ex-wife took the furniture, the dog, and the version of you that still believed the math would eventually work out in your favor. Calculating what a decade of service actually bought you. A bad shoulder, a daughter you see every other weekend when you could afford the gas, a divorce decree that requires you to pay $1,100 a month on a salary that was already too thin before the alimony. The cocaine sits on the evidence table. Your partner Marcus is logging the count on the clipboard, reading numbers aloud, careful and deliberate the way he does everything. Marcus still has the wife who packs his lunch, the 2 kids who think their dad is a superhero, the mortgage he is slowly, methodically paying off. He reads the oath on the break room wall sometimes. Not ironically, I've seen him do it. You used to be like that. You remember being like that. It feels like remembering someone else's life. The junior agent making secondary inventory misses 8 kilos. You watch it happen in real time. His pen moving, his lips counting, his eyes not catching the discrepancy. 8 kilos of pure Colombian cocaine becoming a ghost on a federal evidence form. Marcus's phone rings, his school's call. He hands you the clipboard and steps outside. You stand there with the clipboard and the 8 kilos and the math you've been doing for 10 years. You don't decide to take it. That's the part nobody tells you about corruption. There's no moment of decision. There's just a moment when you realize the decision was already made somewhere behind you, in the accumulation of all the smaller moments, the surgery you couldn't afford, the birthday present you couldn't buy, the empty apartment you come home to every night. You adjust the number on the clipboard. 8 kilos becomes 0 discrepancy. Movement 2. The double life. The money arrives in a gym bag in a parking garage at 2 in the morning. Diego, a CI you've run for 6 years, a man who feeds you information in exchange for your selective blindness, counts it out without looking at you. $40,000. You asked for 60. He laughed. You took 40 because 40 is still more than you've ever held in your hands, and because the alternative was putting the 8 kilos back, and you already know you won't do that. You drive home shaking. The money sits in your closet for 4 days. You keep expecting the knock. Internal affairs, your supervisor, Marcus, but nothing comes. The discrepancy gets attributed to the junior agent's paperwork. He receives a written reprimand. You receive nothing because you are, by every official measure, clean. You pay off your credit cards. You fix your car. You buy your daughter the birthday present she asked for, the one you've been promising for 8 months. She hugs you when you give it to her, and you feel briefly like the person the oath described. That feeling lasts exactly 19 days. By month 4, you have taken from 6 separate busts. Your system is precise. You only move weight when Marcus is occupied, only use Diego, only create discrepancies that fall within the margin of clerical error. You've studied the patterns of every IA investigation in your field office for the past 3 years. You know exactly how sloppy the paperwork has to look to read as incompetence rather than intent. You are making $180,000 a year stealing from evidence lockups. You are also making $67,000 a year as a federal agent because stopping would look suspicious. You have more money than you've ever had. You are also the most exhausted you have ever been. Diego offers you the cocaine at month 5, not as a product pitch, as a professional courtesy. He says you don't know what you're selling unless you know what it does. He says quality matters. He says just once. You've seen what cocaine does. You've scraped addicts off bathroom floors. You've watched men younger than you die in ambulances with their eyes open. You know exactly what it does. You do a line in the front seat of Diego's car at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday, and within 4 minutes, you understand why people throw their lives away for it. Not because it feels good, because it feels like the opposite of how you felt for the last 10 years. It feels like the exhaustion just stopped, like someone turned off a noise you'd been living with so long you forgot it was there. Your arrest numbers go up. That's the part that makes no sense until it does. Cocaine makes you fearless in a job that requires fearlessness. You're first through doors again. You're running surveillance for 16 hours without fatigue. Your supervisor notices your performance metrics improving and mentions it at a team meeting. Marcus claps you on the shoulder and says you seem like yourself again. You are not yourself again. You are the opposite of yourself. But cocaine has a specific gift. It makes you absolutely certain you are the most functional person in the room. By month 6, you are doing 2 grams a day. What you don't know, a financial crimes analyst in the IA division has flagged a pattern across 4 evidence logs from your field office. The discrepancies are small and look clerical. She isn't certain yet. She has opened a preliminary inquiry. She has not told your supervisor. She runs the numbers every Tuesday. Each Tuesday, the picture gets slightly clearer. Movement 3, the collapse. Marcus sees it before anyone else. He doesn't say anything for 3 weeks. You'll understand later that he spent those 3 weeks hoping he was wrong, constructing alternative explanations for your weight loss, your shaking hands, the way you've been volunteering for every evidence assignment. He wanted there to be another answer. There wasn't. He corners you after a briefing and closes the door. He doesn't ask if you're using, he asks if you're okay. The distinction matters. He's giving you a door, an exit from the conversation that preserves the version of you he still wants to believe in. You walk through the door. You tell him it's the divorce, the custody stress, the shoulder. You give him enough truth to make the lie convincing. He backs off because he needs to back off, because the alternative is something he isn't ready to name. He covers for you twice after that. Once when your supervisor asked why you were an hour late to a briefing and Marcus said you were running a CI meeting he can verify. Once when a junior agent mentioned your hands are shaking and Marcus redirects the conversation before it lands anywhere permanent. He does these things instinctively. 7 years of partnership creates a muscle memory of protection that operates before the moral calculation can catch up. Later, you will understand that those 2 moments cost Marcus something he never fully recovered. The raid that breaks everything is a Thursday. Multi-agency operation, 200 kilos at a stash house that took 4 months to locate. You do 3 lines before you breach, because 3 lines is what it takes now to feel like yourself. You're the first one through the door. The house is empty, clean. The intelligence was wrong, or the cartel moved the product, or someone tipped them off. You don't know. But you're so deep in the cocaine that the empty house reads wrong to you. Your brain, which is no longer reliably processing reality, tells you the product is here, hidden, behind the walls. You start tearing the house apart. Marcus grabs you by the vest and walks you outside. He stands in front of you on the curb so the rest of the team can't see your face. Your pupils are wrong. Your hands won't stop. Your supervisor comes out and looks at you, really looks, and you watch him understand. He sends you home. Marcus walks you to your car. He opens the door for you the way you open a door for someone who can't be trusted to do it themselves. Then he leans in and says 4 words. I know what's happening. You drive. You sit outside the empty stash house as the sun comes up. 36 hours without sleep. Heart rate at 140. The gun in your holster. You pick it up. You hold it in your lap for 20 minutes, and you think about your daughter and whether she would be better served by a father who is in prison or a father who is not anywhere. You put it back. You drive to the federal building. Movement 4. The cost. Your supervisor is not surprised to see you at 6 a.m. outside his office. When he arrives at 7:30, he unlocks the door and gestures you inside without a word. He has a legal pad ready. You talk for 40 minutes. Everything. The 8 kilos, Diego, the $260,000 hidden in your apartment, the cocaine, all of it. He takes notes without interrupting, and when you finish, he leans back and asks if you're willing to wear a wire. The operation runs for 11 weeks. You meet with Diego twice a week with a recording device taped to your chest, documenting transactions, names, locations. You are 3 weeks in withdrawal. The shaking, the sweating, the paranoia that makes the cocaine paranoia look gentler, and you are still showing up, still performing the role of the corrupt agent who has no idea the ground is shifting. Diego trusts you because he thinks you're the same as him, someone who chose money over everything. He has no way of knowing you made a different choice on the curb outside an empty stash house at sunrise with a gun in your lap. Marcus is your handler. Every night you hand over recordings and debrief. Clinical, professional, operational questions and operational answers. But at the end of one meeting 3 weeks before the takedown, he looks at you and says something that you will carry for the rest of your life. He says the hardest part wasn't finding out you were dirty, it was realizing he'd been making excuses for you for months, that his instinct to protect you made him complicit in something he never agreed to. He says he's been asking himself whether covering for you was loyalty or cowardice, and he still doesn't know the answer. You don't have an answer either. You just nod and leave. The raid happens on a Tuesday. 15 simultaneous locations. Diego's network comes down in 4 hours. Marcus puts the cuffs on Diego personally. You watch from the command van. When they bring Diego out, he looks directly at the camera. He figures it out in real time. He doesn't look angry. He looks like a man who should have seen something coming and didn't, and is making peace with that fact. He almost smiles. You testify for 6 days. 17 people receive federal sentences. Diego gets 40 years. You surrender your badge in a conference room. Marcus is one of 3 witnesses. He watches you unclip it and set it on the table. 7 years of partnership. He shakes your hand. Firm, brief, professional. He walks out and doesn't look back. What you know now standing outside that conference room. The cocaine didn't make you corrupt. The corruption was already there, built from 10 years of a system that extracted everything you had and offered you a salary that didn't cover your medical bills in return. The cocaine just made you stop pretending the math worked. That's not an excuse, it's an explanation. The difference between the two is the most important thing you've learned, and you learned it too late to use it. In a field office 3 states away, a junior agent is logging evidence from a bust. Careful, methodical. He counts twice before he writes anything down. The senior agent watching him is named Marcus. He got promoted 6 months ago. He's the kind of agent who still reads the oath on the break room wall, who still believes the mission matters, who has a wife who packs us lunch and 2 kids who think their dad is a superhero. He watches the junior agent work, and he thinks about a man who used to stand in front of him the same way, careful, methodical, counting twice. He thinks about where that man is now. Then he looks back at the evidence log and makes sure the numbers are right. This story is entirely fictional. However, DEA internal corruption cases and law enforcement addiction statistics are extensively documented. If you thought this story would end differently, tell me in the comments. Subscribe for more.